In Haiti, the security crisis affecting the nation continues to aggravate, with violent paramilitary groups controlling over 80% of the capital. In Mexico, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs called for an investigation on the entry of U.S. military weapons into the national territory. And the Israeli military forces raid Khan Younis in southern Gaza as hundreds of thousands are forced to move yet again. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In the past days, Haiti's security crisis has worsened, with violent paramilitary groups controlling over 80% of the nation's capital. Last Friday, armed men in Port-au-Prince raided a key community that is home to numerous police officers and has been under siege for several days in a continuing attack, with residents fearful of the violence spreading throughout the city. Also on Friday, armed groups kidnapped 6 nuns in the center of the Haitian capital and have demanded their payment of $3 million as ransom after Pope Francis himself asked for the release of the nuns and 2 other people captured. To date, hundreds of thousands have been displaced from their neighborhoods and are internal refugees forced to live in stadiums, schools, or public squares. In this context, thousands of Haitians have taken to the streets to protest against the government of Ariel Henry due to the serious humanitarian situation that the country is going through. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro denounced on Monday that some sectors of the opposition seek to promote scenarios of violence and uncertainty in the country. The accusation was made during the president's TV program, Con Maduro Más, where the head of state stressed that the objective is to blame him for the violent incidents created. Maduro said those sectors are betting on a coup d'etat to jump to power and generate violence, that they also bet on assassination and economic and psychological warfare to create chaos and make people desperate. The Bolivarian leader reiterated that the people knew who the true responsible for the sanctions were and who the criminals that have attacked the stability of the economy and the country were, and highlighted the revolutionary character of all Venezuelans. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, affirmed that the arrival of the Southern Command in Ecuador will bring much more violence to the country.
I have said with much respect to President Noboa, President Noboa, do not open the doors of your country to the devil. Tell me, President Noboa, people of Ecuador, a single country in the world where the United States have helped to stabilize, take Colombia as an example. After 30 years of Plan Colombia, Colombia has more peace or has less peace? Colombia has more mafia or less mafia? Colombia has more drug trafficking or less drug trafficking? Where the United States arrives, chaos prevails. I tell you, it will not be the South Command President Noboa ever who will bring peace and true security with full respect to the Constitution of the Ecuadorian people. It will not be. It is a blunder to take that step. I have modestly tell you, if you want to talk President Noboa, if you want to talk to me, and I can tell you how Venezuela, with the Venezuelan national doctrine, with its own forces, with its own effort, without the DEA, without the North American military mission that would kick them out of Venezuela, Venezuela has built the basis for a new security, respecting the people, without repression.
The Venezuelan head of state, Nicolás Maduro, lamented the death of Colombian Senator Piedra Córdoba and highlighted her important work in her country's politics.
Piedad was a great friend of Venezuela, of Commander Chavez, and a great friend of mine, and of Celia, a great companion, a great friend of the house, I can say, who suffered all the persecution, dirty campaigns for being the first black woman leader that emerged in the Colombian political panorama, who arrived to Congress with a brave voice. He was kidnapped and almost assassinated by the paramilitaries of Castaño. Persecuted, he was subjected to many attacks and permanent campaign in the media, and now in the networks against her moral. President Petro said something that really moved me. He said, "The body and mind of Piedad could not stand so much persecution. She left us all of a sudden."
In Venezuela, Attorney General Tarek William Saab offered details and testimonies on the latest conspiracies against the state unveiled and prosecuted by the security forces and the public prosecutor's office. In his speech broadcast on national and international channels, the Attorney General revealed 5 moments and criminal terrorist actions that tried to bathe Venezuela in blood. He said that the captured soldiers are mercenaries from Colombia. The official indicated that the details of who pays for ammunition, weapons, or air and land transfers and have clear track of financing are known. William Saab added that the detainees are convicted, confessed, and have revealed information about the plans against the majority of the Venezuelan people and the democratic society.
Through intelligence work, it was determined that a group of civilians and police officers were operating in coordination with members of foreign intelligence organizations. These conspirators were operating in meetings with the purpose of recruiting members of security agencies to gain access to confidential information related to presidential security. They always have been with this obsession of assassination against the head of the state, President Nicolás Maduro. It is an obsession that keeps them awake at night and against high authorities of the state and government of Venezuela.
The Ecuadorian government held a meeting with U.S. authorities under the pretext of addressing the internal armed conflict in the country. This Monday, President Daniel Noboa met in the city of Quito with U.S. Senator Christopher Dodd and General Laura Richardson. The meeting was also attended by the Ecuadorian Foreign Minister Gabriela Sommerfeld and the Ministers of the Security Access. A statement issued by the Ecuadorian presidency explains that both parties agreed to increase cooperation in security and defense. Analysts and social organizations warn that the security crisis that Ecuador is going through and the declaration of an internal armed conflict could be an opportunity for the United States to increase its military presence and sale of armament to the South American country.
We have just had the meeting with the authorities coming from the United States, and it is a motive of satisfaction to be able to receive the visit of the Special Envoy for the Americas, of President Joseph Biden, Christopher Dodd, and the Commander of the United States Southern Command, General Laura Richardson. The presence of these high authorities in Ecuador is a powerful and concrete political signal of support from the United States to the management of President Daniel Noboa in the non-international armed conflict against terrorism.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Monday in Mexico, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Alicia Bárcena, called for an investigation into the entry to Mexican territory of weapons of exclusive use of the United States military. Meanwhile, the government of Andrés Manuel López Obrador has already filed 2 lawsuits against U.S. firearms manufacturers and distributors. For his part, the United States ambassador to Mexico, Ken Salazar, declared that the White House seeks to combat the flow of arms and that they are aware that 70% of the arms that enter Mexico are linked to U.S. producers. According to official data, more than 500,000 arms are trafficked annually from the United States to Mexico.
There is one very important thing, and that is that the Department of Defense has warned the United States about the entry of weapons into Mexico that are for the exclusive use of the U.S. military. It is very urgent that an investigation is carried out.
In Argentina, there are only a few hours left for the first national protest against the administration of President Javier Milei, and confrontations between the government and the union leaders are getting hotter. The leader of the General Confederation of Labor, Pablo Moyano, replied to the Minister of Security, Patricia Bullrich, that the march to Congress on January 24th will be uncontrollable due to the number of mobilized workers. With this statement, the leader of the CGT warned the Casa Rosada that nobody will run the workers with fines or with military forces. Then the President Javier Milei assured that those who call for the protest defend what he called a populist model that generated a country with 50% of poor people and 10% of indigents. The Central of Workers in Argentina replied to Milei that his omnibus bill repeats the failed recipes of the dictatorship Minimism and the Macri administration. In Colombia, the coffin carrying the remains of Senator Piedad Córdoba arrived in Bogotá, where they paid tribute to her in a funeral chapel in the Constitutional Hall of Congress. Córdoba's body was transported to Bogotá from Quibdó, where she was bid farewell by her relatives and close friends. The tributes to the outstanding activists in Congress of the Colombian Republic were held until 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday in the Constitutional Hall. The acts were for all public, so citizens who wanted to say goodbye to the senator could enter the Congress. The body of Senator Piedad Córdoba was later taken to Medellin, her hometown, where the funeral ceremony was held, and she received a Christian burial. In this context, Vice President Francia Márquez paid posthumous tribute to Senator Piedad Córdoba. Márquez thanked Córdoba for the path that opened the doors of politics for Colombian women.
As Vice President, I have to say that Piedad Córdoba opened the doors for women in politics in this country, but for black women in this country. I would not be Vice President without the path that she took along with many other women and men of this nation. Thank you, Piedad, for believing in the peace of Colombia. For going into the jungles to rescue kidnapped people. Even if this country has not recognized it, I will always wonder why a woman who had done such an important job has not recognized a value in this country. But now that I am here, I understand the pettiness of politics and the human pettiness that sometimes do not allow us to recognize these acts of greatness that deepen the democracy of the country like Colombia.
Likewise, the Colombian Vice President Francia Márquez thanked Piedad Córdoba once again for teaching women not to silence their voices before anyone.
Thank you for being brave, for telling the truth in the face of everyone, even if they don't like it. Even to many of men and women comrades with whom she was built together with. Thank you because she taught us, black women, not to be silent, not to bow our heads. Piedad was always a woman who looked regal. And until her last days, when she was in the hospital several times, one could see her very regal because she never bowed down. Always with her elegance, always with that dignity that characterizes us as people, as women.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. For a short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. The Israeli military reported in a statement the extensive operation in the Palestinian town of Khan Younis in the southern Gaza Strip. The army added that the deployment of its ground forces was in response to 24 of its soldiers being killed in the enclave, representing the highest number of casualties in a single day in the 3-month war. The statement described how Israeli ground troops engaged in hand-to-hand combat and used intelligence to coordinate fire. Al Jazeera journalists said that the Israeli army's operations would only aggravate the humanitarian crisis in the city, which now suffers extreme shortages of food, water, and medical supplies. Khan Younis was designated as a safe zone for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from the north. According to medical sources, Israeli forces killed at least 65 people in attacks on Monday. In the Palestinian city of Rafah, volunteers at one of the city's cemeteries are reopening old graves to find place to bury the dead amid continuous Israeli army bombardment of the southern Gaza city. At a cemetery in the east of the city, grandfather Jalal Abu Hasna watched as a team of volunteers buried his slain granddaughters, niece, and cousin in ancient graves, some of which date back to the 1980s. Their relatives were killed early Monday when a shell hit the tent in which the family was sheltering in Khan Younis. Khan Younis has in recent months become one of the fronts in the conflict between Israeli forces and Hamas militants in Gaza. According to cemetery volunteers, some of the largest old graves hold up to 17 corpses.
We were in our tent. A shell fell over our heads. My son's two daughters were martyred, my brother and the daughter of my cousin. I wanted to bury them in a grave, each on their own. But because there are plenty of martyrs of the huge disaster, we had to bury them in a mass grave.
Yemen was attacked by a new round of missiles launched by United States and United Kingdom fighter jets and ships. In a statement, the British government reported that on Monday night, 4 Royal Air Force Typhoons, supported by a pair of Voyager tankers, joined U.S. forces in a deliberate attack on Houthi locations. The note details that the strikes, which were supported by Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, targeted 8 targets in the Arab country. The offensive comes after the Houthis claimed on Monday to have attacked the U.S. military cargo ship Ocean Jazz in the Gulf of Aden. The joint operation comes about 10 days after U.S. and British warships and fighter jets struck more than 60 targets in 28 locations. That was the first U.S. military attack to what has been a response of Houthi drones and missile attacks on commercial ships since the start of the Israeli-Hamas conflict in October. In Cameroon, authorities launched the first systematic childhood vaccination campaign against malaria. This is the world's first routine childhood malaria vaccination campaign and is expected to be extended this year to some 20 African countries. Children in 42 districts of Cameroon will receive the vaccine after it has been successfully tested in pilot programs in Kenya, Ghana, and Malawi between 2019 and 2023. 95% of malaria cases occur in Africa each year, as well as 96% of deaths, and Cameroon is one of the most affected countries. In France, farmers maintain protests demanding better working conditions amid promised answers from the government. The farmers block highways and roads with tractors on several points of the country. The movement affirmed that it will maintain these actions throughout the week and for as long as necessary while they wait for their demands to be met. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal promised quick answers that have not yet been received by the farmers. The mobilized farmers denounced the impact of inflation on their daily work, the low salaries, the environmental norms that they consider very severe, and the increase in the cost of fuel. In Germany, railway workers announced an extension of the general strike to demand better wages and other labor rights amid a scenario of confrontation. This is the 4th strike in the current wage dispute, which is called to begin at 6 p.m. local time on Tuesday and is expected to last until Monday, January 29th. The mobilized workers reiterate their demand for better wage conditions, considering insufficient the proposals received from the railway companies, in which they were offered the option of 1 hour less work for drivers and train attendants as from the beginning of 2026, as well as a 4.8% increase in salary as from August and another 5% as of April 2025. In addition to wage increases, the workers are demanding a reduction in working hours from 38 to 35 hours a week with no reduction in pay, something Deutsche Bahn has so far refused to do. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.
For me,